to give us a little of her personal background.
Okay.
I mean, were you raised in Bel Air or anything like that now? Okay. So we want to know about you personally, and as well as issues that affect the city of Los Angeles and the San Fernando Valley. With that, Councilwoman Jan Perry.
Good evening, everybody. Come on, you're tired. See, this is the pasta, now they're quiet. So, let's try again. Good evening. It's good to see you. Hi, I'm Jan, Council President Pro Tem of the Los Angeles City Council, one of 2 women and a 15-member council, so you know it's not easy every day, all right? I feel like I have 13 husbands. I have been a councilwoman since 2001. I represent downtown Los Angeles, Little Tokyo, Skid Row, and South Los Angeles. I go all the way down to 96th Street. Each council member represents about 260,000 people, so it keeps us pretty busy. I love my district because it's got everything from the best to the worst, to the most challenging to the most rewarding. It's a very complex district, and every day I get up and I go to work and I feel very lucky because most people don't get to do what they love each and every day. And it doesn't feel like work to me. Now, you wanted me to say something a little personal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tell us about yourself.
All right. Well, I was raised in the Midwest, and I lived in Ohio. My father and all his brothers were World War II veterans, so I grew up in a household of a vet. And we talked about the war a lot growing up, and it shaped me very much. My mother and father were married after the war, and my dad's gone, but one of his brothers is still alive, and he was a member of the 92nd Infantry out of Fort Huachuca, and he's a Buffalo soldier. And they made a movie about his infantry. It was called Miracle at Santa Ana, and it was about a unit of African American soldiers who went and saved a small town in the Tuscany region. Now I say that because of what I do now here in Los Angeles. I work with the 442nd, and they are the Japanese American unit. And I was telling my uncle about the 442nd, and he said, well, that's really amazing because they came in behind us in Italy and Tuscany, and they backed us up after we had gone through and secured the town. So, you know, I have this connection that I didn't even know. So back in 1973, I was a freshman at a school called Case Western Reserve University. And my parents had some friends who were graduated from Ohio State, and they were going to the Rose Bowl. So they had a daughter my age, and they said, would you go out there with their daughter so she's not bored? So I go, okay, you know, I go out. We come out to the Rose Bowl, and, you know, it's true what they say. We were out there on Colorado, and you look up and you see the mountains, and the air was blue, and there was snow, and it was just beautiful. And I came back, much to my parents' consternation. I said, I gotta go to school out there. So, and I applied to USC, and I transferred, and, you know, I never went back. But it really affected me that much, because, you know, if you come from the Midwest, it's a nice place to be from, and it's a good place to grow up, but I just couldn't take the winter anymore. So, now my father had a very interesting background, and my mother does too. I never thought I would go into anything political. When I was about 11 years old, my dad, when he came back from the war, he went to law school at night, and he ended up practicing law with a fellow who became the first African American mayor in Cleveland. His name was Carl Stokes. And then his brother, Lewis, went off to Congress, and then my father ran for mayor in the municipality where we live, so it was a big deal, and I kind of grew up in that. And, you know, my parents never got babysitters, so we always went everywhere with them to meetings, and, you know, they didn't have safety belts either back then, so we got in the back seat and sort of slid around with the dog, and just went to all the meetings and handed out flyers, and, you know, served people punch and pound cake, and, you know, talked about fair housing and registering to vote. And I asked my mother on Martin Luther King's birthday to write me a note that I could use as a speech because I wanted to say something special. Because I remember when they were so young and they went to the March on Washington, and you know, back then people really knew how to dress. I look at them now and I think these were not radical people. My mother had on pumps and a pocketbook and a shirtwaist. My father always had on a suit and a tie and a hat. And so they got on these buses, and we stayed behind in Ohio, and they all went to Washington. And my mother said that you know, her parents were scared because they didn't want them to go. They were frightened, and they got on the buses and they were singing. They stopped off in Pennsylvania to go to the bathroom, and she said it was very dark and everyone was nervous. And another bus came up, and she said they were singing "We Shall Overcome," and she said it was beautiful and all that. And she said when the bus unloaded, she said everybody on the bus was Caucasian. They were not black. And they were singing the same song that they were singing on their bus. And she said it was at that moment that she realized that she could be optimistic, not only for herself, but for her children. That was us. And that she felt like this was an epiphany, a transformative moment for her. And she said they then went out to Washington together in a caravan, and she talked about how they put their tired, hot feet in the water in the mall and listened to the speech. And she said it was a day that was as great for her as the day she gave birth to all three of her kids. She said there was none greater than that. So, you know, I read her letter to some folks on his birthday because I still want to give some boring old speech. It was very personal. And it's just a keepsake for me, and you know, I just wanted to share that with you. You said you wanted to hear something personal, so all right, I got personal. So I've been on the council. I was in the private sector for about 14 years. I was a paralegal. I did litigation and corporate transactional work, but I always did community work, and I loved it very much. My first community service was through the Joint Educational Project at USC, where I was able to tutor children after school, and I just loved it. I also I don't know why, I learned Spanish in Ohio, but I also spoke Spanish, so when I came out here, you know, finally I had people I could talk to, because there weren't a lot of people who spoke Spanish in Ohio. At that time, it's probably changed a lot. So, you know, I was always looking for that ultimate fulfillment, so even though I was in the private sector, I was always doing volunteer work and community work because it just made me happy. So I started working for the city in 1990 and worked for 3 council people and worked for Mayor Reardon and ran the census for the city of Los Angeles in 2000. And then term limits kicked in, so I figured what the heck, I ran for office, and you know, nobody thought I could win, which really amused me to no end. It kind of freaked me up to be able to do whatever I needed to do. So I got out there, and you know, it's funny, coming from the Midwest, doing as we do, I campaigned the old-fashioned way. And I walked all over the district, and I knocked on people's doors, and I talked to them directly. Now, that doesn't mean to say I didn't use the high-tech tools, too, but I remember, this is a funny story. I was walking the district, I knocked on the lady's door. I said, "Hi, my name's Jan Perry, and I'm running for city council." She said, "Oh, you're not Jan Perry. That girl's pretty." And I said, "Well, no, really, I am. I know it's hot. I have a sun hat on, and you know, sorry, it's me." So she went and got the picture, and she held it up to my face. She said, "Oh, okay, because your eyes are the same." So I said, "Okay." Anyway, but this is when you have to have a thick skin when you're out campaigning. It's not a big, it's not a big deal. But I had a good time, and that's how I am. So I love what I do. I really appreciate the fact too that I can come out here and speak with you tonight. And I think, is that more personal? Is that enough? Okay, that's enough? All right, enough already. I wanted to go through these ballot measures with you and then allow you to have time to ask me questions. So I won't go into horrendous depth, and you already got Measure L, so you've got that one out of the way. That's a big one. First one is Charter Amendment G, and that's on pension reform. And that will amend our current pension plan for any new police or firefighters who are hired after July 1st, 2011. And it creates a new tier or a new level of pension that's going to provide us, the city, the council, with flexibility in meeting our future pension obligations by requiring people to work a lot longer with less benefit. This is not going to affect people who are currently retired and people who were hired before July 1st. These are people who haven't been hired yet. Now, Charter Amendment H. Now, I'm going to make sure that I do not editorialize, because I don't necessarily support all of these, but I'm going to tell you what they are. Charter Amendment H. This prohibits bidders from contributions to city candidates, extends ban on campaign contributions of city candidates, and any city official, to anyone who bids on a city contract that's worth more than $100,000 and requires council approval. It would also increase the amount of public matching funds available to candidates who agree to spending restrictions by eliminating the maximum balance in the fund of $12 million. The impact is that it would reduce general fund money available for public safety and/or community services. Okay, I oppose that one. So we can talk about that in a minute. Charter Amendment I, the Office of Public Accountability. This is the one that establishes the Office of Public Accountability, appointed by mayor and then confirmed by council to oversee water and power rates. The office would become the ratepayer advocate at the Department of Water and Power. And the companion to that is Charter Amendment J, which mandates a procedure for the Department of Water and Power revenue transfer to the city. So what that does is that requires the department to submit to the council every single year on a timeline that is prescribed, procedures in the form of a preliminary budget. And so they have to tell us in advance, are you going to transfer the funds or not? And if so, why not? And the source of those funds is the Power Revenue Fund, and the transfer goes into the city's general fund. And if you're interested, I can go into the details as to why that happened. You've got coverage on Measure L, or Charter Amendment L. Okay, this next one is Charter Amendment M, City Tax on Medical Marijuana. Mixed bag, basically, tax on marijuana collectives of $50 for every $1,000 of sales to support general municipal services. I'm just going to let that one sit. Charter Amendment N. This is a procedural charter amendment. We have to remove unconstitutional language from the charter based on a Supreme Court ruling regarding campaign contribution limits on independent expenditures, providing for city and Los Angeles Unified School District elections. The language has been determined to be unconstitutional, therefore it's unenforceable, so we have to take it out or we'll get sued. Charter Amendment O, which is a measure that will support a new source of revenue for the city of Los Angeles and help maintain vital services, such as police, fire. This is a tax of $1.44 per barrel of oil and is projected to raise $4 million on an annual basis for the city of Los Angeles. Now you may ask, where do we derive that figure? Our chief administrative officer recommended this amount because it is very similar to the rate of our contiguous neighbor, Culver City. Now, Culver City has a gross receipts tax of $18 per $1,000 of gross receipts from oil production activities. That is the rough equivalent of 1.8% of gross receipts from oil extraction. Now, the price of oil is still in the $80 per barrel, so 1.8% of that works out to be about $1.44 per barrel, although the price of oil is projected to rise over the next year. Being realistic, the price of oil always fluctuates. Now, you may hear that Measure O has been accused of being a double tax on oil companies, and it is not. It closes a loophole to ensure companies pay for